Good evening, fellow Plex server owners. I wanted to get a video out because I know some people are waiting for my opinion on this purchase I made as an extra bench system. So, I've recently learned that a Windows Plex server with Intel hardware supposedly now supports tone mapping with hardware acceleration off the Intel iGPU as long as it's a Tiger Lake or newer Intel processor, and Alder Lake is one version newer than Tiger Lake. So I thought this would be a fun unit to test with, and I could have an extra bench system, and I could test that out under Windows, see how this N100 compares to the 11th gen mobile version of an i5 in my NUC that I'm running under Unraid as a Docker host to point back to my Synology NAS. I just thought I'd see how this worked as a standalone Ubuntu and Windows Plex server, and possibly as a media center type of PC where you could plug it into a monitor or a TV and use the HTPC client app with a wireless keyboard with a trackpad on it. Well, unfortunately, I didn't get too far under Windows. I finished the Windows logging in routine. I installed the 64-bit version of Plex on it. I installed the Plex HTPC client app. I installed VLC for good measure. And I popped on OBS Studio so I could record what I was doing under Windows. Definitely kind of a light software install. I copied all my test public domain Plex media structure over to it that I use for videos, which has one 4K regular movie, a high bitrate movie, the Magnificent 7. That's what I've used for all my transcoding videos because it has a high bitrate. Unfortunately, the Windows first test was a hot mess, not even worth sharing a recording. I could not get hardware acceleration to work with or without tone mapping enabled. I rebooted multiple times, and weirdly, hardware accelerated transcoding with a couple 1080p streams worked like a charm. So before I gave up, I tried to start just easy to stream 1080p videos in the Plex HTPC client app for Windows, and this unit just behaved like a pig. I couldn't believe how poor the performance was. But again, I thought, cheap price, very cheap price. Let's only compare it as a Plex server like I might run a test on the older 9th gen Celeron processor in my newer Synology NAS. So I pulled that NVMe drive out, and that's when I learned that it had shipped with a SATA NVMe, and just a little bit of research, this unit has two NVMe slots in it. The first one's under a heat sink, two screws removes it, and when you pop it out, you clearly see it's a SATA NVMe. Well, the first slot will accept either a SATA or a PCIe, and supposedly it's a 4-lane PCIe slot in the main one. So I popped that SATA NVMe out and put a crucial PCIe 3 NVMe in that I've used for other things without issues. The next slot, while it's PCIe, it's only got one lane, so PCIe 3 times 1 versus PCIe 3 times 4. So I was kind of wondering maybe the SSD was the issue, but so anyway, I got Ubuntu installed, set up the same way, same programs installed as I did with Windows, and I was surprised that it wasn't as responsive as I hoped it would be. Okay, where am I? I'm over here. So basically right now I can easily prove that as just a standalone Plex server, it's not a bad little device for $189. But if you want to use it as a full media PC where this connects to your TV, and you want to use the HTPC client app with, a Flirt dongle or a wireless keyboard with a trackpad, this is not the inexpensive purchase for you. It's just not. So I'll show that later on when I record on the device itself. Right now I'm up in my office and I'm just, where am I? I'm just accessing this like you would any remote server. So I want to get into the 4K library a couple times. And I don't like testing this way, but I gotta be alone in the house to use all 8 possible client devices, and I just don't have the time to try to do that tonight with my son home. So I thought I'd run this test first. So let's click this into dashboard, and now I've got 2 people streaming. So we gotta remove that from whatever number I can start with this Beelink. But now we're into the dashboard here. And I've got the sound turned down in my mixer. Excuse me, I'm getting tired, and I'm usually a night owl. So let me pull that up on my other monitor in case I have to make any last minute adjustments. And let's start a couple streams. Let's start 3. These should already be in transcode. Okay, so we know that the Chrome web app, just like a Roku, is going to misreport the bit rate. This would be 4 megabits per second. That's the transcode I left this movie in. So right now we're looking for buffering. And I don't want to get a copyright strike, but with the sound off, maybe I'm okay just kind of clicking back and forth. So for $189 to handle 3 high bitrate 4K videos with hardware acceleration already turned on, that's not bad. And if we go to the settings, I played with this before, but I may not have done a video on it. Let's see, there's the transcoder settings. You'll see I'm enabling tone mapping. I'm using the Hable algorithm, and Plex has a support document on it. They suggest this is the best. It may make some scenes a little too dark, but it'll give you the best representation. And they explain what the other options do. Basically, if you try to do this under Windows without tone mapping, these other options look like what you'll get. Under Linux, this Hable option makes it look like you're the same picture when you're direct streaming it. All you can do is test that yourself. So I've got hardware acceleration, tone mapping, and use hardware accelerated video encoding. I'm slurring my words because apparently I'm too tired to do a video. And this is just set for auto, but you see the Alder Lake UHD graphics iGPU is there. So let's go back. Let's see if we can catch anything buffering. I think we're good. So let's add in a 4th stream. And I'm not comfortable using the web app, but I'll do a regular test in the next day or 2 and get that filmed. Let's go back and watch to see if anything. So now our first stream buffered, or is it the new one? It's probably the new one. These 2 are playing. Now they're all playing. Yeah, this is the last one because it's just starting up. Let's just take a tour. So we've got 4 streams playing good. Let's see what happens if we drag this one around. We go back. So we drag that around, it's buffering. It hasn't caused the other streams to buffer. But this is taking a little bit too long to recover for my taste. But it did. They're all playing now. So let's look at our CPU usage. This is quite respectable at 40%. So already I've got mixed feelings. This may not be a purchase for a Windows user, but tone mapping has always been problematic under Windows. To think that Plex is going to solve that issue right out of the gate without bugs is not realistic in my opinion. But under Linux, hey, this has got to be probably at least as good as the old 9th gen Celeron in my Synology NAS, even if it's only equal to it, and you have a NAS that doesn't have hardware acceleration, this would be a cheap server to point back to the NAS. So far so good with 4 streams. Oh, we've got some buffering. Now we got some buffering here. Right there. There's the stream that's buffering. So 3 may be the limit. Let's knock out a... Oh, yeah, we've got more buffering at the same time. Buffering. All right, let's knock out a stream. So, to be honest with you, I'll redo this with my actual streaming devices. But my 9th gen Celeron processor and the older Synology NAS can handle 5 of these with those regular streaming devices. But I wanted to get something out because it does work for hardware acceleration, and quite possibly 189 is worth it to you for what looks like 3 stable streams right now. Yeah, so 3's the magic number with a web app. Well, it's late and I can't use all my devices, but I can get my bedroom TV going with the 2017 NVIDIA Shield, or 2018, I forget the year it was made. My tablet will be a second device, my tube-style NVIDIA Shield in my office, and my HTPC client app right on this computer. Well, I can't cut the sound on that, so I'll use my tablet instead. Let me pause this, and in this video I'll get 4 streams going through more traditional client apps, just as an extra test. Let's stop these while we're together. And let's make sure we go down to 0 streams, so those are off my normal server with my friends and family. Okay, give me a few minutes to prep for that, and I'll be right back. We'll have a partial test, and if it can handle 4, that'll tell us something about the client app not being the best app to test with, as I kind of suspect. Be right back. And I'm back. All right, so without too much difficulty tonight, without having the house to myself, I can get 5 streams going, and if it does 5, I'll put a 6th stream on with this desktop computer and the HTPC client app. So I have my older Shield, it's a 2017 model, in my bedroom going. Forced it into a 720p transcode. And then instead of using my NVIDIA Shield Pro on my 2022 Sony Bravia OLED, I decided just to use the regular Google TV client app that's built into the TV. So where is this one running? This one is my laptop. I can boot up into Elementary or Ubuntu, and I booted up into Ubuntu, and I've got the HTPC client app for Linux running, also with a forced transcode. So I've got the volume down on my NVIDIA Shield tube style in my office, so let me start up a 4th stream. And now we have to watch for anything to buffer. All right, so you can't hear it, but it just started up and it shows playing. Well, not that one. This one. So you see the original bit rate is 104. Now this is, I think it pops up to 190 something if you put it on a server that's brand new, but eventually some sort of indexing happens and this becomes more of an accurate bit rate. All right, so let's take this stream into transcode at the same level. And I'm looking away from the mic as I talk. Okay, I just switched it. We see the buffering, but let's see if anything else buffers while that's starting up. It's playing on my screen, and it looks good. Already this looks as good or better than using the web app. And I just had a suspicion not to trust the web app, and that may come true tonight. Okay, so no buffering. I think we're doing pretty good. Let me turn down the sound on my, it's a OnePlus Pad Android tablet. So let me start that client app. Okay, and you see that popped in here, and it immediately started direct playing it. So with 4 transcoded 4K streams, this 5th one started up no problem. All right, so let me remember how to do this under Android, mobile Android. Okay, I am switching now. So it's already showing 4 megabits per second. The circle's spinning on my device. It's showing buffering, but we're going to look for buffering in other locations, and now it's playing. So, go grab a glass of iced tea, go make a coffee. I'm going to just stay with this with dead air for a little bit, or just talk nonsense to see if any of these streams buffer. So far it's doing really good, and I still have my phone to add in also. So my suspicion that this may not have been as good as my 9th Gen Celeron in my Synology DS1520 Plus may not be warranted once you're using regular client apps, because this is the limit of that device. This was also the limit of my bench system with either 16 gigabytes of RAM or 32 gigabytes with its i5 9500 processor, a 9th Gen i5, just a regular desktop processor. This was my wall with the same test media. All right, so I don't see any buffering going on. So now let me find my phone. And let me find the right test library. Okay, so let me start that on my phone and turn the volume down. Okay, so here's my Pixel 8 Pro. It's playing. Let's give it a second to see if just playing direct screws up any of the previously transcoded streams. It's like watching for whack-a-mole now with this many dashboards up. Okay, so this is the one we're watching. So already at this price point, running Ubuntu as the server, this is pretty stable, even though it won't make a good media PC to have Plex and the client app on at the same time. For $190, this is bad. Now, I am running a PCIe NVMe drive and not a SATA. I do have to figure out the issues under Windows, and once I do, maybe I'll do another Windows install on this same NVMe drive and not bother with the no-name SATA NVMe that the unit shipped with. So that might be a consideration too. All right, where am I for the playback settings? Okay, I am, well, under this client app, I don't see a 720p. Oh, yes, I do. Sorry, I was blind. Here's the same one. I'm switching now. So we see it buffering, but is anything else buffering as that transitions from direct stream to transcoded? All right, it took a little bit to start up. Now it's now it's transcoding. And let's see if this stays stable, because if it does, it's already beat the 9th gen Celeron processor in my DS1520 Plus, in someone else's 920 Plus, 720 Plus, 220 Plus, 420 Plus, 423 Plus, and 224 Plus. Oh, did I just miss it? Did this just buffer while I was running my mouth? Well, I'll have to watch this again when I put it on YouTube, but even if that buffered for a second, being the last stream started off, my opinion is changing already. And again, this kind of tells me that, oh, there it is buffering. So this may be the wall. But let's be realistic. This is all high bit rated 4K servers. And to share this many streams remotely, you need a pretty kick-ass outgoing connection from your ISP. You're not doing this if you're lucky enough to have a gig connection through like Spectrum with a coaxial cable, where your outgoing connection may still be limited to 35 megabits per second. That just ain't happening, as the uneducated Plex server would say, Plex server owner would say. So I've got a gig fiber connection in and out, so I could share 4K media if I want. But a lot of you guys buying a device at this level, you're not trying to share 4K media remotely. You're using it locally. And what are the chances that you're going to transcode any of that locally anyway? It's probably not very high. You're probably going to direct stream it. So if I can do 6 fairly stable or 5 fully stable of this high bit rate 4K media, just imagine how many 1080p transcoded streams you could do. You know, with even if the original bit rate on the 1080p was like a Blu-ray rip, where it was 35 megabits per second, that's a lot easier to convert through hardware acceleration than this file. So I guess I'm impressed. I'm coming around to this. I was kind of thinking that the $189 for it was a little overpriced, just because of the initial bad experience with the Windows install. But using actual Plex clients just paints a different picture than using the web app. Somebody asked me in the thread on Plexaholics, why don't you just use the web app? You can start up a lot of streams and really test it. Well, I don't think that's a true test. If I get a quicker and earlier failure with less streams, what does that tell you in the real world? And we all know, right? What few things do we know? Tell your users not to use the Chrome app. Tell them oh, there's some buffering on my phone. Will it pick up? No, I didn't see it pick up. And I can see my bedroom TV from where I'm sitting through 2 open doors. In my office TV, I can see the office TV hasn't buffered. I can't see the living room TV or the laptop out there. But again, I'm pretty impressed. So back to transcoding. How many of you are going to be trying to serve up those 4K streams? There it is, buffering again. So I don't really need to do more tests. This is the limit. Maybe I'll recreate this with another device besides my phone. But my Google Pixel 8 Pro speed tested around, I don't know, 700 megabits per second up and down to my Wi-Fi 6E TP-Link Deco router. So I really don't think this is a phone issue. And I could test that right now. Let's drop out the tablet. And then add the tablet back in to see if the last device is the one that buffers. So now my OnePlus pad is down here. So, you know, if you're bored, turn this off now. If you're interested in this little mystery, let's see which of these buffers, if it's still the Pixel 8 Pro or if it's now the OnePlus pad that is the last device added. Oh, and I'm direct streaming that. I'm glad I saw that. Alright, let's change that quality to 4 megabits per second. We should see this buffer in a second because it's buffering on my end. Okay, so this is always like 5 to 10 seconds behind what the actual stream is doing, sometimes quicker. Alright, so I spy which one of these will start buffering. The phone. Alright, so that definitely means I'll redo this tomorrow and eliminate the phone and add in another device. I've got a ONN device in the basement. I can use my son's NVIDIA Shield. That's another tube style when he's at work. I'll get this going, but so far it looks like the hard limit is around 5, possibly 6. So the Android tablet just buffered 2. So we really may be at a 5 device limit. That's no different from my Synology NAS, but you can't buy that processor someplace for $189 in a device you can use to connect to a NAS. So I think this is a pretty successful test, and before I ramble too much further, I will say goodnight and happy Plexing. And for $189, it is what it is, and I'll figure out what's going on under Windows. And maybe it's just that cheap SATA NVMe drive. It's a no-name, so maybe that's the issue, and I'll let you know if it is. Thanks for watching. It's time to go to bed early.